Let's start the basic lecture number 2. To access the working directory, please open the PHITS folder and go to the lecture folder, the basic folder and the lec02 folder. They are many input files in the working directory. We will mainly edit the lec02.inp through the exercises. In the lecture, you will learn how to deduce various physics quantities from PHITS simulations. You can obtain this kind of results at the end of the lecture. These figures show particle fluence and depth dose distribution for the simulation condition for homework. This slide shows the contents of lecture number 2. The first subject is, what is tally? According to the dictionary, tally means a record of the number or amount of something, especially one that you can keep adding to. In PHITS, we use the word of tally for functions to deduce physical quantities such as flux and deposition energy, or depict the two-dimensional or three-dimensional geometry in certain area. PHITS simulates the motion of each particle using the Monte Carlo method. You can estimate their average behavior by calculating various physical quantities by using tally. Here is shown the result of track tally for particle irradiation. Blinking dots are particles. Source particles enter the target, and sometimes they react with target material, and secondary particles are generated. This is trajectories of each particle. When you want to know how many particles were passed through this region, you will use track tally. Various tally functions are implemented in PHITS, and many physical quantities can be deduced from the PHITS simulation by selecting an appropriate tally. For example, particle fluence can be deduced by track tally and cross tally. Deposition energy can be deduced by deposit tally. Secondary particles can be deduced by yield tally and product tally. You can also check your geometry by using these tallies or using G-show option. Let's go on to the next subject. Every time you construct a new geometry, it is better to check the geometry. Otherwise, you would obtain wrong results without noticing misdefinition of the geometry, especially when you make an overlapped region. In this subject, you learn how to use tally for checking geometry. Let's start exercise 1. At first, we will confirm the geometry of lec02.inp in a two-dimensional view using G-show option in track tally section. When you use G-show option in tallies, you have to set I control equals 8. So please set I control equals 8 in the parameters section and execute PHITS. In the lec02.inp, a water cylinder with a radius of 10 cm and a height of 50 cm is defined as cell 101. Let's check the answer. When you open the EPS files, you can see the cross-section views of the water cylinder in the XY plane and the YZ plane, respectively. The radius of circle in the XY plane is 10 cm, and the height of rectangle in the XZ plane is 50 cm. Next, let's confirm the geometry of lec02.inp in a three-dimensional view using Fig 3D. The execution method depends on the OS, so please take care. You can see the water cylinder in a three-dimensional view. You can also rotate the geometry by moving the mouse pointer with holding the left click. Three-dimensional view is easier than two-dimensional view to confirm the configuration of the geometry. Let's go on to the next subject. In this subject, you learn how to define tally. At first, you will select types of tally depending on what physical quantity do you want to know. After that, you will set 4 components, that is, where, what particle, which unit, and what output form. You will set these parameters depending on your purpose. Here is shown the example of track tally section in lec02.inp. Track tally is used for calculating track length or fluences of particles in certain regions. Track tally can also be used for visualizing particle trajectories by setting a fine mesh in the tally region. As described before, it has 4 components, that is geometrical mesh, unit of output, output form, and particle type. This slide shows you how to visualize particle trajectory. In this case, the certain area is subdivided into small rectangle grids. The orange sphere is a particle that you want to score. The particle passes through the region, and grids are colored along particle trajectory. Next particle passes through the region, and grids are colored along particle trajectory. Next particle enters the region. It is deflect, and grids are colored along particle trajectory. Next particle enters the region. It is deflected here and finally absorbed, and grids are colored along particle trajectory. Trajectories of particles are shown here. The color expresses the fluence of the particle. Yellow means high fluence, green means middle fluence, and blue means low fluence. When any particle does not enter, grids are not colored. Let's go on to exercise 3. To confirm particle fluence, please set I control equals 0 in parameters section and execute PHITS. In this calculation, a carbon beam at 250 MeV per U with a radius of 2.5 centimeters is irradiated on the water cylinder. After finish the calculation, please open trackxy.eps and trackxz.eps to see the particle fluences. Before I show you the result, I will explain some parameters in track tally section. The output file name is defined by the file parameter. The EPS out parameter is used to select whether output EPS file or not. The EPS file name will be picked up from the file parameter. For 2D plots, error files are automatically generated. Let's check the answer. You can see the particle fluence as shown here. The warm color means the high fluence, and the cold color means low fluence. The center of the cylinder has high fluence. It comes from the irradiated carbon beam. Secondary particles are generated via nuclear reactions of carbon beam with target material. Therefore, middle fluence is observed around the carbon beam. Here is shown the error file. In 2D plots such as tallies with axis equals xy or something, statistical errors are output in another file named foo_error.eps. Warmer colors indicate larger relative standard errors, closer to 1, while colder colors mean smaller errors. You can check whether relative standard errors are sufficiently small or not. This slide shows you the red screen obtained from PHITS simulation. It is not fatal error like system error of Windows PC, so please don't worry about it. If no particle is scored in a tally, all regions are painted in red. Here is shown the result of track tally with dir equals -1.0 in source section. All of the source particle goes to the opposite side of water cylinder, thus red screen appears. Usually something is wrong with the input file. If you get red screen, please check the setting of your input file. Now, let's learn how to select geometrical mesh. There are 3 types of geometrical mesh in PHITS. That is, XYZ mesh, RZ mesh, and reg mesh. XYZ mesh divide the regions in the XYZ coordinates. RZ mesh divide the regions in the cylindrical coordinates. Reg mesh divide the regions in cells defined in the PHITS virtual space. In the track tally section of lec02.inp, XYZ mesh is adopted. How to divide the region is defined by X-type, Y-type, and Z-type subsection. For X-axis, the minimum value, the maximum value and the number of mesh are defined. For Z-axis, the number of mesh and Z-coordinates of each boundary are defined. This slide shows how to define a mesh. Mesh is a common concept used in many tallies. The type of subsection is X, Y, Z, R, E, T, and A. They are first letters for each physical quantity. You can define each mesh using the following 5 types. X-type equals 1 and 2 are described before. X-type equals 3 is almost same as X-type equals 2, but it's subdivided mesh by logarithmic interval. For X-type equals 4 and 5, the minimum value, the maximum value and the width of a mesh are defined. The red letter will be replaced if you want to define other meshes. Let's go on to exercise 4. To see a finer structure in a 2D plot, increase the number of mesh in the track tally section. Please multiply nx and ny in the track tally section with axis equals xy by 4. And please multiply nx and nz in the track tally section with axis equals xz by 4. After that, please execute PHITS and check the result. We can see the tracks with a better resolution by increasing the number of mesh. It should be noted that the file size becomes large when you increase the number of mesh. So please set the appropriate number of mesh for your purpose. Next, let's subdivide the time mesh to see a change of fluence with the time. In this exercise, we will edit T-type subsection in the track tally section with axis equals xz. The procedure is shown here. First, please set T-type equals 2 and set in T, Tmin, and Tmax parameters so as to divide time mesh from 0 nanoseconds to 5 nanoseconds into 5 bins. Second, please comment out the unnecessary line for T-type equals 2. After that, please execute PHITS and check the result. The time evolution of radiation fluence can be seen in each page of the EPS file. In GS View, you can switch the pages of EPS file by space and backspace keys. The GIF animation can be made. An example is prepared in PHITS Utility Animation. Next, let's learn how to select observed particles. Let's start exercise 6. The aim of this exercise is to see the fluences of individual particle species. In this exercise, we will edit part parameter and T-type subsection in the track tally section with axis equals xz. Specifically, please change part equals all to part equals carbon-12, proton, and neutron. In addition, please restore T-type subsection to the original settings. After that, please execute PHITS and check the result. You may obtain this result. They are individual behaviors of specified particles in each page of the EPS file. You can see that carbon ions are stopped in the water cylinder, and secondary protons and neutrons are emitted in several directions. Next, let's learn how to select output axis in tally. Let's start exercise 7. The aim of this exercise is to see the particle fluence with its energy distribution. The procedure is shown here. First, replace axis equals xz by axis equals eng. Second, set E-type equals 2, Ne equals 100, Emin equals 0, and Emax equals 5000. Third, set Nx equals 1, and Nz equals 1 to reduce the number of pages in the output. Last, change the output file name to track eng out. After that, please execute PHITS and check the result. You may obtain this result. You can see the energy distribution of each particle species. The carbon-12 has a peak at the energy of 3000 MeV. It should be noted that the unit of Emin and Emax is MeV. If you want to tally energy spectrum in MeV per U, please specify IMeV per U equals 1 in the parameters section. Next, let's change the horizontal axis to a logarithmic scale. Please set E-type equals 3 and Emin equals 1.0. You may obtain this result. By plotting in a logarithmic scale, you can check the low energy region in detail. Let's go on to exercise 9. Here, we will see the energy distributions inside and outside the cylinder. The procedure is shown here. First, please change the geometrical mesh from the XYZ mesh to the reg mesh. Second, please specify the two regions to tally by adding reg parameter. The cell number of inside and outside of the cylinder are 101 and 110, respectively. Last, please delete or comment out parameters for mesh equals XYZ. After that, please execute PHITS and check the result. Here is shown the result. You can see the energy distributions of each particles inside and outside the cylinder. Let's go on to exercise 10. Here, we will confirm energy deposition using deposit tally. Please open the tdeposit.inp file and copy deposit tally section and paste into the lec02.inp file. You can pass it deposit tally section wherever you like, except the middle of each section and below the end section. After that, please execute PHITS and open deposit EPS file. Here is shown the result. You can see the spatial distribution of deposited energies. The carbon beam deposited high energy in the left side of water cylinder, and secondary particles deposited middle or low energies in a wide area. Next, let's learn how to select the unit of physical quantity from exercise. Let's start exercise 11. The aim of this exercise is to change the unit of the output in the deposit tally section from MeV per cubic centimeter per source to gray per source. Please replace unit equals 1 by unit equals 0. It should be noted that when a region includes more than two materials, the calculated dose in such a region does not equal to average value of the region. The answer is shown here. The visual of the figure does not change, but the unit and its scale have changed. Let's go on to the next exercise. We will try to output the energy deposition along the z-axis in the water cylinder by using an RZ mesh. Here is shown the procedure. First, replace mesh equals XYZ by mesh equals RZ and set R-type and Z-type subsections. Second, set radial range from 0 to 10 cm within one bin. Last, replace axis equals XZ by axis equals Z. After that, please execute PHITS and check the result. The answer is shown here. You can see a Bragg peak of the carbon beam at Z equals 12 centimeters. Here, I will introduce graphic utilities. First is Angel. Angel is a software to convert text data files to image files. You can adjust regions of vertical axes by setting Angel parameter in the tally section. You can also write Angel parameters to the output files directly. You can execute Angel only by following method. So you don't have to execute PHITS again only to redraw the image files. For example, add p:/e min 1e-11, a max 1e-9 to deposit out, and then execute Angel. After that, the range of the vertical axis changes. Second utility is ParaView. ParaView is a free software for three-dimensional visualization. It draws 3D view of tally results for mesh equals XYZ. You can output tally results in ParaView format by specifying VTK out equals 1 in each tally section. The sample file is put in this directory. So, now, let me go on to the next subject. This is a list of tallies to visualize geometry in PHITS. I will introduce them briefly. G-show tally is for visualizing the geometry in 2 dimensions cut by certain slices. It shows region, boundary, cell number, material ID, and so on. Other tallies with G-show parameter can be used for this purpose by setting I control equals 8 in the parameters section. 3D show tally is for visualizing the geometry in 3 dimensions from a viewpoint of a certain location in PHITS virtual space. It is activated only when I control equals 11 in the parameters section. Here is shown the relation of parameters of 3D show tally. The name of parameters are written in red. These parameters define conditions of eye point, light source, origin, and picture frame. It is difficult to make the figure what you expected at first try. So please adjust parameters, execute PHITS, and check the result repeatedly until the expected figure is obtained. You can make GIF animation that rotating geometry obtained by 3D show tally using Python software. If you are interested in it, please see the folder of PHITS utility animation rotate 3D show. This is a list of all tallies to deduce physical quantity. I will introduce major tallies briefly. Track tally is for calculating track length of particles in certain regions. Average fluence in the region can be also deduced from this tally, dividing the track length by the volume of the region. As you used so far, you can visualize the trajectory of particles by setting small mesh for tallying regions. Cross tally is for calculating fluence or current of particles across certain surfaces. Current is simply added by 1 when a particle crosses the surface, while flux is added by 1 divided by cosine theta. T-point is for calculating fluence of neutron and or photon at a certain point or ring. T-point provides fluence in a short computational time, but there are some using limitations. The instruction and samples are placed in the folder of PHITS utility T-point. If you are interested in the point tally, please see them. Deposit tally is for calculating deposition energy in certain regions. Ionization energy losses by charged particles are scored. Event by event data can be also deduced. Neutron and photon doses can be also calculated by the Kerma approximation. Deposit 2 tally is for calculating event by event deposition energies in 2 regions. Output a 2D plot to show their correlation, as shown here. It is useful for simulating experimental data obtained by using 2 detectors such as delta EE telescope. Yield tally and product tally are for calculating the number of secondary particles generated by nuclear reactions in certain regions. There are little differences between 2 tallies. Energy or time distribution of secondary particles can only be obtained from product tally. Yields of each nuclide can only be depicted on nuclear chart with yield tally. DPA tally is for calculating the radiation damage index DPA in certain regions. DPA is the average number of displaced atoms per atom of a material, and is calculated by multiplying the fluence with the damage cross-section. LET tally and SED tally are for calculating the probability densities of deposition energy or fluence in terms of LET, lineal energy or specific energy in microscopic sites distributed in certain regions. They are useful for radiobiological calculations. Interact tally is for calculating the number of interactions occurred in certain regions. The mean number or probability density of interactions can be obtained. D-chain tally is for generating input files for D-chain. D-chain can calculate the time evolution of the radioactive nuclides during and after irradiation of radiations. D-chain is also included in the PHITS package. Let me summarize the basic lecture number 2. A variety of information can be deduced from the PHITS simulation using functions called tally. 2 types of tallies are implemented in PHITS. One is for visualizing PHITS geometry, and the other is for calculating physical quantities. For defining tally, you have to determine following components. You can find examples of each tally in this folder, so you can copy and paste tally section from them.